Are we good? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight to our Meet the Candidates night. You'll see the four candidates here, Karnjit Singh, Kim Furnish, Pam Carbone, and Richard Frederick. That is the order they will be in on Election Day, on May 16th. That's the order they will be on the ballot for you. Each candidate has 3 minutes for an introduction statement, and then they will have 2 minutes to answer my questions, and we apparently have a timekeeper to keep track of that, folks. So, go ahead, Karnjit, you can start.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Karnjit Singh. I was born and raised in Queens, New York. I moved up to the Capital Region in 2010. I've been a Scotia resident now for 6 years. When my wife and I were looking for a place to call home, we chose Scotia-Glenville to raise our 3 children. Our 3 kids currently attend Glenwarden Elementary, where my wife also works as a teacher assistant in a support room. I've worked right over here in Glenville Industrial Park in 2010 as QP. In 2011, I worked at TSA in Albany Airport. And since 2016, I've been working at Sabic, formerly known as GE Plastics. In Sabic, I worked as a production operator on the swing shifts, those of you that know that term. And this past August, I was promoted to manufacturing technical specialist, where I schedule customer orders, make sure they're produced and delivered in a timely manner. With this recent promotion, I've been able to spend more time with my children and their activities, and also attend more board meetings than before. The reason I'm running for board is because with 3 children in the district, with 3 children in this district, I feel I have a personal interest in preserving and ensuring the quality of the school district, and also giving back to the community that has opened their arms to my family and I. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Kim.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Boucher Furnish, and I appreciate the opportunity to run for school board. My husband, Mark, my son, Isaac, and I have been lucky enough to be a part of the Scotia-Glenville community for the past 15 years. We moved here when Isaac was only 2 months old, so he's been growing up in the Scotia-Glenville school district with Scotia-Glenville Elementary through middle school, and now he's enjoying his first year as a freshman at high school. We've felt very fortunate for what this school district has done for Isaac, and I've tried to be able to give my part back to the school district community. I was president of the Scotia-Glenville PTA for 3 years. I was Reflections Chair for the Scotia-Glenville PTA Council for 5 years, and I'm currently currently Secretary for the Scotia-Glenville PTA Council and for Scotia-Glenville High School PTSA. Not only have these things been rewarding for me to be able to help the district for what they've done for us, I also think it would help me as a board member because I've been able to learn the community, I've been able to learn the school district and meet the parents, the teachers, the staff, and the other children. I also truly believe my background, education, and career would help me for the qualifications as a board member. I've been an attorney for 25 years, the last 10 of which I've been the sole human resources attorney for a state agency of 4,000 employees. Through that, I've done labor relations. I have worked in all aspects of employment law, personnel, and most importantly, I've been able to create and maintain relationships with labor, with employees, with management, and I think that would serve me well here on the board. If you want to learn further about my background and why I want to run for board, I do have a campaign page on Facebook. I've posted about it in the local Facebook communities for Scotia-Glenville. Please take a look. I want you to get to know me, ask questions. I also want to make sure that the whole community, whether or not you have a student, feels comfortable as they can in this economic environment to be able to say that the school taxes that they're paying, knowing that that money being paid is being put to great use, and that the board has done all they can to keep the taxes low while making sure that our staff, our teachers, and all of our students are getting what they need in order to make sure that we have a good community in our district as we've had. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for letting me talk to you all today.
Thanks, Kim.
I'm Pam Carbone. A lot of you I recognize. You probably recognize me. I have been on the board. This is my 27th year on the board. I think that fact in itself is what makes me most qualified to be reelected to the board. My knowledge and my experience with education has virtually been my entire life. I taught my first class when I was a 5th grader, and my math teacher asked me if I wanted to teach the 4th graders, and I did, and it went very well. And I've been just education all the way ever since then. Before I retired, I worked for the Schenectady City School District. I was a tutor for 10 years, and then I was a middle school science teacher for 17 years. So I know the teacher's side of it. I know what it's like to be in a classroom. And maybe I don't know quite what you're going through right now, because things have changed with COVID and the pandemic. But I do have a really good idea of what it's like to be in a classroom dealing with students and all the issues that come up there. Training I've had has been phenomenal through the New York State school boards. I actually served on the Cultural Diversity Committee for NYSBA for 3 years, president of the Capital Region School Boards Association, president of this school board, been on PTA since 1988 and received the Founders Day Award in 1997. I have found myself mostly recently when I'm on the board kind of acting as a mentor for the newer board members. Our board is a very young board. With Mr. Bucefaro stepping off the board, that means that our president and Dave Musaro have 5 years experience on the board. They've gone through things, they've seen some things, but questions come up, and I've been able to answer those questions for them. And I think it's important that we have someone on the board who has some kind of knowledge and a lot of experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Rick.
Hello, I'm Rick Frederick. Tell you a little bit personally about me and why I think I'd be a good board member. Personally, I'm a hometown guy. My parents, Rick and Pam, have lived here my whole life, and I'm married. My wife Sandy. We have 3 children together, Evan, Charlie, and Ava. One in each level of schooling. My daughter's in elementary, middle son in middle school. My oldest Evan in high school, which has been pretty fun this year to have that kind of experience. I like woodworking, riding my motorcycle, barbecuing, camping, and playing and coaching sports. I do a lot of that. So on the board, very interesting. I'm finishing up my 3rd year, and I was a lucky guy to start my board career during the pandemic. So that was on purpose. I did that because I thought I could help. I have a master's and a bachelor's in science and mathematics. So I thought with my logistical and analytical background, I could lend a hand during that trying time. And I think I hit the ground running. And I was quickly able to help out, and I've been helpful, I think, for 3 years and created a good relationship with the other board members. I feel like we've done a lot of great work. I've served on the audit committee for 3 years, which has been great. I've been working with as a board liaison to our consultants' tangible developments with a diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has been great for a couple of years. And this year I'm the legislative liaison, which has been a new and exciting spot for me on the board. I'm excited to continue to see the policy transformations that Pam and I have been working on, in the next coming years. If I were to be reelected, I think that's a great effort that we have underway together, and one of the greatest works I think this year we have going on. So basically, like I said, I'm a hometown guy. I feel like I'm well qualified to help see this district continue to improve and have a stellar record that it already has. I appreciate the relationship I've built with Superintendent Swartz and our administrative team. I feel like we can continue to work together in a positive way to serve the district and its residents. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Okay, so I will have questions for you folks. Let me remind you, you have 2 minutes to answer the questions, okay? And we're going to start with Karnjit. What is your opinion of the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative that the school district is pursuing? These initiatives are intended to address inequities against historically marginalized groups based on gender, race, and gender equity, or gender identity that may be found within the school district. Every school district is required to study DEI issues. But what's your opinion of Scotia's DEI initiative?
I believe it's a great initiative. I'm very happy that the school board is, been working real hard towards it. I've been attending board meetings regularly to familiarize myself with policy and procedures on it. Again, being a person of a minority here, I believe is a great thing currently going on, and I'd like to see more of it.
Okay, thanks. Kim?
Well, as a human resource attorney for a large state agency, one of the main things I have to deal with is making sure that our protected classes are protected. My son and I both actually participated in the survey that took place this year involving the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I think it needs to be done. It needs to be brought to the forefront. I think training is very important, educating our students. It can't be all about reactive. We have to be proactive. And I think if we make sure our students are educated and that they know that simply because somebody may not be the same as them, that doesn't mean they need to be treated differently. Actually, I noticed that in New York City, they're actually expanding their studies with respect to race, with respect to other protected classes, and I hope to see that extended throughout New York State. I know Scotia-Glenville has been very strongly into it, even as far back as 2020 when the superintendent wrote a very eloquent email and provided instruction and links and guidelines with respect to it. And I think the surveys are another good step. I want to see those surveys leading to educating our students that everybody is different, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you're from, and we all need to be treated equitably.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Pam?
Tangible development, has been doing the work for us in surveying the staff, the students, and the community. And we have had two really good presentations up on their part, which have really showed us what the data is showing. And we are going to be getting more of that from them. I think that, especially having been a teacher in Schenectady, I have really seen what it means to have diversity and inclusion. And I really think it's important. All the schools, as Kim said, have got to be working on this. So we're into it, we're doing things, we're getting our reports, and I expect that in the end we'll have some really good ideas as to what to do to make Scotia-Glenville better in this area.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Rick?
It's really interesting, being close to it, being the liaison from the board, to see Dr. Elby's work has been great and very insightful. But unfortunately, wasn't very impressive how Scotia scored. But it highlight the areas that we have to work on. And I actually took away from the community, the students, and the staff where we need to work. So it's great that we got to a point where the issues are identified and kind of got off, the state list and kind of lost the moniker that we weren't doing really well there. So that's something to be very proud of. But really, I'm excited to see what happens next for Scotia. What we do next. I'd love to be part of that. I think all four of us would be great at that, especially Singh has, vested interest without a doubt. I've talked to him about that. I think he'd be great to help us going forward. But yeah, so that's really where we are. And we're partnered with a great team. I think Superintendent Swartz passionately cares about this, and I know that's going to be this district's one of the front burners for this district for years to come. Thank you.
Okay, terrific, thanks. Okay, so this is for you, Kimberly. There's been talk of book banning in school districts, including recently at the Boston Spa School District. Are there any circumstances under which you would support banning a book?
No, I would not. I fully support the parents' ability to say they don't want their child to read the book, but I don't think there should be a full ban on the books. I am very open with making sure that my child has the education that I think he should have with the books that are available. And I think a parent, if they fully believe that they shouldn't have their child read a particular book, that's fine. But a global banning, I completely disagree with. In fact, it breaks my heart to see such banning of books.
Okay, thanks, Pam.
There have always been books that people have protested against and not wanted in a library or available to their kids. And I think Scotia has done very well in providing alternatives if a parent does not want their student to read a particular book. The only case that I think I would agree with banning a book is if it was totally not age appropriate. There are books that are fine in the high school library that I wouldn't want to see in an elementary school library. But that doesn't mean that I would just, get rid of it entirely and whatever, and nobody ever be able to have it. But I think we just need to be a little cautious about what we're exposing our children to.
Okay, all right, thanks, Pam. Rick?
I was at the middle school orientation, and my wife and I walked past the library and saw some books in the display case, and we did definitely rose an eyebrow a little bit. So it's kind of interesting. It's a great question. I feel like our Miss Swain does a great job with the books. We've talked about this in so many meetings about the different books that come in and are shuffled through. I really would trust the district to do a good job because they're the professionals at doing that. Should there be an issue that arose from parents with a concern for a book, could we, as a board collectively discuss it really well and ask for it to be taken off the shelf if we didn't think it was appropriate? I can see myself being part of that. Being for an outright ban of a book, I guess I'd have to understand the circumstances before I answered a full ban on something like that. It's an interesting time where that is happening. There's certain topics that are really tough for folks to wrap their heads around, and there's divisiveness out there. And having kids being exposed to different ideas is kind of part of schooling and becoming a bigger and better person. So banning things and not having exposure to it is kind of a stopgap that you're not allowing them to move forward. Letting your child come home to you and say, there's this interesting book, and have that great conversation with your child, I think is even important. Say, maybe not take that book out. That's not something that we want you to read yet. Fully banning the book is kind of a tough thing. It kind of impedes that education, at least to have that conversation. I guess that's where I am to answer that question. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Karnjit?
I feel the same way like everybody else. I don't think banning a book, completely is necessary. If the parents feel like their child should not be reading that book, that's up to the parents. I know there's ways to have a book removed from a library. You got to go through a process to fill out and kind of understand why you're trying to ban the book or trying to remove it from the school itself. But again, I believe it's a parent's discretion to say, okay, let's not read this book. Like Rick said, let's not read this book. It's not right for you this time. But honestly, I haven't heard anything from anybody, in this district alone that said, okay, we have bad books in the middle school or high school or any other school. So I have full confidence in the district in choosing the correct books for our children.
Okay, all right, thanks. This is for you, Pam. How do you view the relationship between the superintendent and the school board? How would you describe that relationship?
I think we have a very good relationship with our superintendent. It's very unusual for a superintendent to stay in a school district as long as Susan has stayed here. It's our responsibility as a board to hire the superintendent and to evaluate the superintendent and the job that the superintendent is doing. It is the superintendent's job to run the district, and it is not our job to micromanage what's going on in the district. And I think our board has been really good about that. We don't try and micromanage very often. And that gives us a good relationship that we can share our thoughts and what we think needs to be done with Susan. And then she will respond to our requests or our needs or anything we ask her to find questions for her or whatever. And I've seen other school boards, and I really am pleased with the way that our school board interacts with each other and with the superintendent.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Rick?
Fantastic relationship. We're very lucky. We have a top shelf superintendent, very well respected across the state, and does a great job with our school board. We're very lucky because she's receptive, responsive. Even as busy as she still finds the time somehow to always get back to us. Maybe not within minutes, but definitely back to us. And it's very lucky. We don't always agree. It is our job to ask questions, and also be the liaison between the community. So there's, not perfect agreement always, but she's so good at her job, it always ends up with the right resolution. I've been lucky enough to be part of a lot of virtual and in-person classes, and some of which are about how to interact with the superintendent and support your superintendent. And so I usually feel lucky walking out of that class. There's a ton of criticism of other districts with their superintendent and how do I deal with this situation because he or she doesn't, do this. We really have very little of that. So I would say we're very lucky to have the relationship we do.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Karen G.
What I could say is I can't speak for other school districts. What I could say is that a board member's job is be out in the community and listen to what the community members are saying and relay it to the superintendent and her staff. I haven't worked that much with Susan per se myself, but every time I see her, she's always nice, always welcoming. I believe what went on during COVID, she did a very good job at executing everything that needs to be done at that time. As recent as this swatting incident we had almost a couple of weeks ago, almost a month ago, she was right on top of the game. She was a very responsible buddy, assuring the schools are locked down when it needed to be, informing the parents, informing everybody that we're safe at this time. So again, being in the school district, I'm very happy that Susan works here or is a superintendent here. So.
Okay, great. Kim.
If you want to get all fancy, they say the board is the employer of the superintendent, and then the superintendent is the employer of the teachers and staff, et cetera. But what I have seen from the board and Susan, it really seems like a hand-in-hand partnership. And I have to say, not being on the board, but being, a concerned parent, I have others from outside of the district surprised I even know who the superintendent is and that the superintendent knows who we are. So I think that we're very lucky in that regard, that we have somebody who is so willing to be out and amongst and talking to us and like they've said, getting back to us. So I do think that we've been very fortunate in that regard, and I do see that continuing between the board and the superintendent having that hand-in-hand partnership relationship.
Okay, terrific. And Pam already answered that question. Okay. So this is for you, Rick. Are there areas of the school budget that need more spending? Any areas that there should be reductions in?
I'm glad you saved that one for me.
Well, I figured you'd want to talk about that, Rick. So.
I do. Sure. Well, the number one issue the district is facing is its enrollment. And so I think an important place to spend some money over the next couple of years would be the analysis on how we can temper or reverse that trend. So maybe some consulting firms or efforts to partner with the town and the village with ways to kind of reverse that trend. It's not a typical place you want to spend the money, and I'm not saying to do a lot of that, but that is something we need to be focused on for the next several years. This district needs to look at that. I think that's going to be a win-win for everybody in the district, not just the residents, the staff, and the students. Really grasping that situation, I think, is totally huge. Otherwise, I think we've balanced it, and I'm only part of it for 3 years now. For a long time, Drew and his team and the superintendent have done a great job budgeting. Our fiduciary responsibility is one of our biggest duties on the school board, and I hope whoever is elected keeps that close to their heart. But yeah, so really, adopting the proper budget so they can adjust the line items across those really good percentages, I think should stay the same. But investing in reversing that trend is important.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Karen G.
I believe in hopefully, if it's possible, to reach out to more state funding, try to see where we get more money coming in to help us out, to get, more resources into the district itself, like working on mental health training, working on possibly getting universal pre-K into the district to help, attract more, young families into the district, make it a better place. So far, I've been here, but budget been pretty, good trend. You see the 2%, 3% increases, which is understandable, but I believe, trying to reach out to more state resources or more village or town resources to help alleviate the burden of the tax, the community members itself, and also trying to use more money to help in helping our students, achieve bigger goals.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
I believe there's a couple of areas that we need to work on. I agree with Rick. Less than 10 years ago, we had 2,500 students. Currently, we have about 2,200. In a couple of years, 27, 28, we're going to have about 2,000. So I definitely think we need to figure out some ways to have those numbers increased. I do think our teachers and our staff need support. Mental health is a huge issue right now, and I worry that our teachers and our staff are going to have more increasing difficulties because they may not be trained in those areas. And frankly, they're one amongst a large classroom of people, time and time again. So I think money towards that to give them the assistance that they need is a good thing. You have to counter that with the fact that this economic climate, I know we always say this, but especially after COVID, has been dramatically increased in other areas. So we have to worry about our community and what they're able to pay, making sure that they're not having financial issues because of taxes towards the school district. We've got a tight budget right now. There really isn't a lot of wiggle room. I am more than willing to admit that from what I see. But I do think that there's areas that we need to work on, especially in the mental health arena, and getting those students back in our doors, and then that'll increase our budget as well.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Pam?
Give us money and we'll spend it. But what we have to do is we have to balance what we need for the students, make sure that the students have everything they need, and at the same time not put too much of a burden on our taxpayers. In the last couple years, we have been fortunate enough to add an SRO, we've added an athletic trainer, and we're adding the mental health on our campus in our buildings. And it's been really great, just having those extra things. So we are looking at the things that we need, and we are adding things that we need. The unfortunate thing is that Scotia-Glenville is considered an average income district. And what that means is that a lot of these grants that are out there and are being offered money to do different things, Scotia can't even apply for, because we're not a low-income school district. We're an average-income school district. So that is something that's really hindering us. But we are constantly looking for grants that are available and that we would qualify for, and we are applying to those.
Okay, thanks. Karen G., this is my last question, and then we're going to open it up for questions from you folks. Karen G., what do you think it means for students to be supported in the least restrictive environment in special education?
Sorry, say one more time. Sorry.
What does it mean for students to be supported in the least restrictive environment in special education?
To me, it means that we are giving more support to the kids that have special needs. Like I said, my wife works in the support room in Glen Warden, and she sees these children every day coming in, and they need more attention. These are our kids. They're all our kids. We live in the district as a community, tight-knit community. And I believe that they need to be looked at more closely than anybody else.
Okay, great. Kim?
I think it means that we need to make sure that our students who have special needs are being treated appropriately and getting their appropriate requirements pursuant to their IEPs. I do have to say that I think our staff and our teachers need more support in that area, because I know that it seems like most kids that are getting those services are more who are reactive, more who have issues that are more outwardly affecting other students. I've been hearing stories about students who are more inward with respect to their issues and not necessarily outwardly projecting those issues, are not necessarily getting the services they need. I don't think it's the teachers and the staff's fault. I think it's they're dealing with the situations at hand. But in turn, I think we're losing out on a large population of our special ed needs kids who do need those services, but because they internalize a lot of their issues and may not be projecting those problems at school, but going home and having the pain and the trouble that enduring a school day for them, because it is an endurance for some of them to have to endure that, those needs may not be met. So I'm hoping that we can have those students as well as those who are outwardly projecting their potential special needs issues to get the services they need. Again, I think that it's tough because we are a school district where we've got a lot of children, and a lot of teachers and staff need the support for that to be able to help them.
All right, thanks, Kim. Pam.
I think least restrictive environment means that we include the students as much as we can in the everyday thing that every other student is getting, and give them the extra help that they need to achieve being able to handle being in that situation. We would need to be sure that they have the opportunity to do sports, to do all the different things that an average student would be able to do in our district. And we need to work with them and give them whatever help and support they need to achieve at the highest level in the least restricted area they can be in.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Rick?
Well, special education seems to be maybe one of the most important but often unappreciated parts of education. Least restrictive, areas to me is kind of eliminating boundaries. My sister has been in special education for over 20 years, and we've had tons of conversations about this, and it's passionate to her and has become passionate to me. And so what it really is every student having the opportunity to not have that boundary, to become better in a tiered or stepped way. So over the course of their education, they're able to grow. She and I have talked about this for hours, and I won't belabor this panel right now, but it is, to me, allowing a student to become their best through the elimination of boundaries.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Okay, folks, so if you have any questions, just go ahead and raise your hands and go ahead and ask the candidates. Let's go for it. Yeah.
So, if you know, what is the percentage of students in the district that are getting free or reduced lunch pricing, and what is your position on free lunch and breakfast for all?
Okay. And why don't we start this with Karnjit? Why don't you start that answer, and then you can all answer the same question.
What my understanding is the benefits of low-income families in our district. My take on it is, if it's possible to get funding from the state or local down here, I believe it should be possible to give out the breakfast, the lunch, and give it to those community members that can't afford to give their kids the money every day.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
If I remember correctly, this is the first year that we're back to not providing the lunches and the breakfast for all students. The past couple of years since COVID started, we have been. I also, is my understanding, and I'm more than happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, it was a federally funded program, and I would like to see it come back again. It would make sure that all students are getting what they need, whether or not they fill the particular box that was required for different individuals, but at the very least, we should be providing it to those who are definitely in need.
Okay, Pam.
We provide it for those in need, if anybody's on federal programs or that type of thing. But the problem with only giving it to them is that they feel funny. They don't want to take the free lunch if other people know that they're getting it free. And we had a lot more people eating lunch and breakfast when everybody got it free. I was very disappointed in the New York State budget that's just coming out because the governor is only providing that money for low-income districts. And as I said earlier, we're not a low-income district. So we're not going to get free food for everybody in this district because our income level is too high, whatever that means. But I think everybody should get it because I think kids need it. I think it helps with their education, and I think it helps that barrier in between people that have money and those that don't have money.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Rick?
So we did have free lunches for a couple of years, and although it wasn't an experiment, it did show that it was a great thing. Kids were fed, and they had the energy and capacity to go through the day. And so I am all for it. I think the number I'm trying to think is 58%. Now that doesn't mean that 58% utilize the program. It means that in our district, 58% are eligible to use that. I was talking with a different board member about this. I think we did the numbers, and it was like $300,000 or $400,000 that it would take to have free breakfast and lunch. And not that every student, that was with every student taking advantage of it, which they all wouldn't. And so it would end up being less. And that's a large number to work into the budget. That's why we probably haven't done that. But I'd be all for doing that because, you know, for a family to know that they could go to school and have that breakfast and or lunch would be, I think, would be a fantastic addition to our, for $300,000-$400,000 would be good use of that money. You know, it's a tough discussion to have, you know, where we are in this, you know, climate kind of coming out of the pandemic to have it. But to answer the question, I would be all for it.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Any other questions?
I have a follow-up question to the free lunches that we've had in regards to, like, have you thought, you know, I know you mentioned about, you know, having looked at the data, but having gone to the families and asked, you know, about, you know, how would you feel about doing that, going to families and asking, because people that I've talked to, they're like, dude, I wish it would just come out with my school taxes, you know, because the more children we have in school, the more money we're shelling out to pay for these lunches, and on a monthly basis, you know, and so we have to add it into our budgets anyways. So, you know, adding it to, you know, survey the families, find out if families would be interested in this, you know, and what you can do. How would you feel about it?
Yeah, Bob, can I answer that?
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, I have. I've talked to a lot of families about this, and it's funny. There's a spattering of answers around. There's plenty of families that would love it because, you know, no making breakfast and lunch in the morning. I love it. It's one less thing. And their kids aren't picky eaters. Then we have the families that say, you know, it's great, but my kid will never eat a peanut butter and jelly. They don't want to eat an apple. And so it's, you know, so it'd be great, but they're still doing that. So it's a funny mix. It's a hard dynamic to really solve. I guess we'd have the survey that it would be, hey, what does everybody's kids like? Find the mean, the average of what everybody likes, maybe have that be our menu. The interesting thing is every year we have consultants come in, and there's restrictions actually on what schools can serve. There's certain criteria every school has to follow. So it is a tough thing. I mean, it would take some time, but, you know, if it were something that the folks in the district wanted, I'd be all for having a committee that included the community members and families to come in and actually talk about that.
Okay. Pam, do you have any thoughts on that?
Just that part of the issue is that there are a lot of people who don't have kids in the district. And there are a lot of older people that are on fixed incomes. And, you know, maybe they chose not to have kids or whatever, and they feel resentful that they are being asked to pay for other kids. And I just wonder if asking those people to feed all these kids when they're not having the money to be able to feed themselves is a tricky issue.
Okay. Okay. Thanks,
I agree with what Pam is saying. As much as I would definitely like to see the free lunch program continued, it would definitely have to be a survey of both members of the community who have children, and those who don't. It would have to be a consensus because they're paying the same taxes that we are as parents. And they are a large, community of people as well, and have the same economic issues that others have. Personally, I would be all for it. I'd be more than happy to pay for it, but I know that there's people who are not. And as long as we are able to get all of those people in on this survey that you're talking about to make sure that everybody's voice is being heard in some way, I think that's a great idea.
Karnjit?
I know every year we get, beginning of the school year, we get a form from the district to fill out to see if you're eligible for free lunch or free breakfast. I agree with most everybody here that's saying that survey should be done to all the community members to see if their child is really in need of it, so they get it. It's a very thin line to walk to feed all the kids in the district and to burden all the taxpayers that may not have kids, like Pam was saying, and those that have kids. So it's kind of hard to describe right now. Again, data has to be pulled, surveys have to be taken to really figure out where we could find a happy medium here.
Okay, thanks. Other questions? Yes. Right here. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, sorry, okay. My number one question was about enrollment. So to go along with what Mr. Frederick mentioned, I guess I'm wondering what the other members, or if you want to elaborate on, would you consider an enrollment or demographic study? And if so, depending on what that information showed us, showed you, would you consider, looking at the district as a whole and where the elementary schools are, and, whether it's, rezoning elementary schools is appropriate. My children are at SAC, it seems like it's a very favorite school. And I'm just wondering really how equitable the education is across elementary schools. Is it an equal playing field when they come together, after middle school in terms of the time they spend with their teachers, their classroom teachers directly, in terms of reading instruction versus, a small group and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So,
Karnjit, what are your thoughts on that?
I believe this was brought up during one of the board meeting a couple months ago. Rezoning is a little tricky because when you rezone, you got to move the children from different bus spots. And currently in Glen Warden, we have an issue where right now we merged I think we merged 2 buses into one, and it just can be cumbersome. Again, rezoning, it depends what the capacity of the school is, how much if the teachers are there, if the staff is there to help alleviate the burden of extra kids. So yeah, I agree with you. You have to look into the data, do a study. You have to look into all that to figure out what the best course of action is.
Okay. Kim?
I think a study would be a great idea. I know we have a wide range of students where we've got Glendale, which has less than 200 children, while Sacandaga's got over 300 children. So I think a study would be a great idea to see what, if anything, we need to do to make it more balanced. That being said, I'd have to wait to see what that study says to determine whether or not rezoning should happen, because that is a huge deal. That is not an easy process to do. It moves staff, it moves teachers, it moves children. You may have children who have been with a certain set of kids for an extended period of time, all of a sudden being moved somewhere else. So there'd be a lot of considerations. So I'd have to see what that demographic study would say to determine whether rezoning is even something that would be feasible for us. But I think it's a good idea seeing the ranges of numbers that we have.
Okay. Pam?
Periodically, the district does do these demographic surveys. We have a consultant who actually goes and looks at what housing is being built, what are the trends in the existing areas, what does it look like is going to happen to the population of our students, and we take this into account. In my time on the board, we have redistricted a couple of times. It's a lot of work. It's a pain in the neck for everybody, but we've done it. And if it comes to the point where it looks like this would be helpful to even things out, to look things, I'm willing to do it again, because it can be an answer to what you need. But you're never going to get a situation where all 4 of the elementary schools are going to be the same size because the buildings aren't the same size. Sacandaga can hold more students than the other 3 buildings. So what we're doing as a district is we're working to make sure that there's equality against all 4 of those schools. The teachers have curriculum that they are following that is the same for all the districts. They're using the same books, they're using that type of thing, so that we are always conscious of making sure that our 4 elementary schools are all getting the same education.
Thanks, Pam. Rick?
It's a really good question and a popular topic. I have friends in every one of the schools and parents there ask me the question every year. And the answer is, it happens every year. Every year there's juggling and moving around of students in school, new enrollments and all, and people who move within the district. So it already does happen. There's a little movement and shaking. And the superintendent takes great care making sure that brothers and sisters can kind of stay together, and there aren't long, bus, trips, for certain students. So it really is a lot of variables, as with all kinds of questions about the school district. The other thing, and so school population also is a derivative of concentration of homes, naturally, right? So more disparate areas will have a smaller, population in a school than a higher concentrated area, and also some of our schools have certain offerings that other schools don't, and so certain students have to go to that school. So, there are a lot of factors. Rezoning, I suppose that is something, of course, before that, if that's the right thing to do. But I think you're just seeing all those variables kind of mixed together in that soup being the result of certain, populations there. But it is something that's definitely watched.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to go on the blood dress question. This is the board meeting for the candidates. So I would ask if you could change one policy or how money is spent on one thing without having to worry about what anybody else thought, what would you change?
Okay, we can start with Kim.
Sure. As I said before, I think I would like to see more mental health services for our students and mental health training for our teachers, because I think that they need that support. If the budget had no ceiling and we didn't have to worry about money, I definitely think that is an important place to go. I think, because frankly, I think all students could use some level of mental health services. I don't know if that's all the requirement of the school district to handle that. However, I do realize that we have a wide variety of children with different benefits, different abilities, different parents with different salaries. So I would like to see more mental health services for all children, depending on what their need is. And I'm more into the proactive versus the reactive, and I think if we provide these services to the children and provide the training that the teachers and staff may need in order to help with that, prior to anything becoming an issue with the child, I think the more the better. So that's where I would put the money if we had that golden parachute, I guess is the word.
Thanks, Kim. Pam?
It's a good question. There are so many places and so many things I'd like to do. But I think I'm going to choose class size. I think when you have smaller classes, the teacher has more time with the kids. It helps with the mental health issues. It helps recognize when there's a problem needing mental health because the teacher has more time with the students. We have been working on that in Scotia and getting the class sizes smaller. They used to be, when I first started on the board, my son's second grade class had 33 students in it. The next year, they were able to put another room in, and it went down to 26. And the difference between his education in second and third grade was unbelievable. Third grade was a much better year for him than second grade was, and largely because of, I should also say, the teachers happened to switch with them that year. So it wasn't the teacher that made the difference. It had to have been the class size. So I think that's what I would do if I had more money to do it, is I would make our class sizes a little smaller.
All right, thanks, Pam. Rick?
Escalators.
Between buildings or within buildings?
What's that?
Between buildings or within buildings?
Within buildings. No
Okay.
more stairs, all escalators.
All escalators, okay.
I'm being funny. I really, it's too hard. I mean, it's really too hard to say, you know, if I wanted to have anything, you know, it's, you know, there's so many areas that anybody could possibly spend, you know, you know, the answer is wherever it would directly affect the kids the best. I mean, I think that's the job here, is just to make sure that the students get the best education they can. So I'd have to, you know, stare at all the places we spend money and then, you know, focus on what would direct, but it all really does. It all mixes together, and in the end, that's what this is all for. So it's a great question, but it's a super hard one to answer. Fan of escalators, so that's why I say that. So that would be great if there was no restriction.
All right, thank you, Rick. Karnjit?
I would say if we had no ceiling, honestly, like Kim and Pam said, the classroom sizes are, you know, would be a smaller classroom would be better. My middle daughter, currently in 3rd grade in Glen Warden, is a part of a 26 children classroom with 1 teacher, an aide, and a teacher assistant. So it's kind of hard. I've been in that classroom. It's like packed. I said, oh my God, how do you even juggle this? And now I know I talked to Susan about this a couple weeks ago. I brought it up. Now the 4th grade class is doing the same thing again because of the same kids moving on up next year. So again, kind of piggybacking off Kim, this is where when kids may have mental health issues, how would you address that? It would be very hard to do when you have 26 kids in one classroom and trying to make sure this kid's not picking his nose, he's not doing this, he's not doing this. I envy the teachers, I really do. It's just a smaller classroom would be a much better way for the kids to learn. I know my oldest daughter is in 5th grade right now. She went through single teacher, small classroom all the time. And if I could point out, again, universal pre-K is something that I would like to see come into this district. And I believe if that does come here, I believe we will attract more younger families into the district and help, you know, kind of alleviate the burden of the taxpayers or what have you. So that's my wish list.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead. That's okay.
So, with COVID, we had a very new experience of having, you know, the hybrid and the technology use in school. And I know that with everybody, even in the elementary school now, everybody's got the computers. You know, it's like, I know that some students didn't do so well with it, but others flourished with it. What is your opinion about technology and how we could use it to better our children so that we're making them prepared to go to workforce where they're using technology like this already?
Pam, we'll start with you.
Good question. I think we're doing a pretty good job of introducing kids to computer ethics and computer use. It bothers me a lot with all this new AI and these new services that are able to write essays and reports and stuff for the students. You know, the students have to be able to do a lot of this stuff themselves if they're going to succeed. You can't rely on a computer to do everything in your life. So I think we just have to work on trying to put it together and use it when it's helpful, and yet make the kids do the work and learn the stuff when they need to.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Rick?
It's a great question. I'm a data scientist. I'm on computers all the time, so I'm a big fan of technology. I think it's part of the future. We're in the tech age, and so I think having the kids have the computers and be efficient in using them and able to use them is a great idea. It's necessary. nothing will replace that classroom environment. So I think, I'm never going to be, all for the continuous hybrid option. I think you want the kids in school learning. But having the ability to do that, we proved to ourselves that it can be done, maybe not perfectly, but we were forced into it, right? We did the best that we could in that situation. So having that technology and utilizing it is great. I think making investments in our technology, having really good laptops available for the children is important. Having a backup, having folks that are in schools trained how to prepare them and use them and teach the kids how to use them is super important. You mentioned that there's some kids that aren't able to use them perfectly, right?
Well, they didn't flourish in the idea of being at home
Right.
and doing schoolwork or being able to accomplish everything they had to do on the computer. Where, other students, they're both at the same grade, but other students were like, oh, they really enjoyed the classroom or having like the teacher do a lecture on the computer, which they do it in college. Having those different types of experiences, some just couldn't do the work where others were like, oh, I love this, I want to do more.
Right. So that's the personification, uniqueness of people. Some people just learn different ways than other people, and you learn that. So, so that's a great example. Some people will just do great in class. Others actually might do better, in front of the screen. So, but again, like I was saying, having folks in the school who can help kids who don't learn really well with a computer, teach them how to do that a little bit better. Learning, timing or some a crutch to be able to use the computer.
Thanks, Rick. Karen G.
I'm a technology guy myself. I love computers, love cell phones, all that. During the pandemic, when I noticed my kids on the computers, and you hear the teacher in the background saying, to this student, hey, pay attention, you're not listening. So again, to Rick's point, keeping the kids in the classroom is very important. But also teaching the kids the technology that's out there is also important too, to keep up with the times, like you want to say, and keep up with technology as a whole. So I believe keeping kids in the classroom and teaching them technology right in front of you is a much better choice than sending them home. But some kids may flourish at home, some kids don't, but at least in the classroom we'll see it live, or the teacher will see it live more than anything. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
When COVID started and the Chromebooks came to all the students, I obviously was not happy about COVID, but I was happy that they were getting that technology made available to them. And as far as I can tell, at least through my son, I was happy to see that they're continuing to use Chromebooks even though they're in the school together. And so I do think that they're learning those skills. I'll be honest with you, my 15-year-old probably teaches me more about my computer than I know myself. But as an employee of a state agency, I have to use those skills that you're talking about. WebEx, Zooms, typing my documents and sending them out. So those skills are important. I do think they're being taught here. And I do think that the hybrid, I don't think is a necessity, because I do see them using those Chromebooks in school, and I realized that it was hard on a lot of students, hard on teachers trying to teach the hybrid of home and in school at the same time.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Other questions? Yeah.
Related to curriculum, what do you see the board's role being curriculum, in other words, development of curriculum, adjusting curriculum, specifically in the area of reading? It seems as though certain things that are being used within the district currently may not be supported by current research. So I'm just wondering how you see your role within the district and the school community, and how you would approach discussion with superintendent or teachers if they approach you with concerns or ideas related to specifically reading curriculum.
Okay. Rick, why don't we start with you?
So every year you have to conform to certain state standards, first of all. So that's unfortunately, you're kind of handcuffed a little bit when it comes to that. But Karen and Susan do a great job at staring at the program, and we're lucky enough to have amazing reading teachers in the district. I do agree, it isn't perfect. my sons struggle in that area. Myself, my wife, and I, we talk about that all the time. We kind of always wish it would be better, and we do bring it up in some board meetings, kind of wondering, you know, what angle we're working on to make that better. It can improve. You know, I agree. It's not perfect, but that's kind of something we work on in every area all year long. So, you know, if you were to look back, I think it was this fall, we had a good conversation with Karen in a board meeting about the different books that we're getting this year and how they're rotating through. And Karen, I mean, that's a large part of her job is to take us, you know, a good look at the books that come in through the district. So it is something we do work on. It is, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Karnjit?
I'm currently not familiar with changes in curriculum myself, but again, I'm still trying to learn this topic more often. My kids, my oldest daughter has a little trouble reading, and she don't like to read in general, so we try to do our best to enforce it. Try to say, okay, let's try to figure out a way to learn better. I believe the current curriculum is set up by the Common Core, from what my understanding is, but there's always ways to develop it better. There's always ways to look into other avenues to help the children achieve better success.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
Like Rick said, there's state standards with respect to all of our curriculum, and those standards have to be met. I think as a board that we would be able to have a right to be able to question how those things are being taught. However, we have to follow the standards that are in play. It's a difficult question. It's a good one. It definitely is a good one, and it's tough because every student has their own different level of ability and what they can do and can't do with respect to reading in this particular instance. I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers in this area by any means. What I can tell you is that if I'm elected to the board, I'm very good at asking questions. I'm very good at finding the people that know the answers and can help us get better answers. So I promise that I will do that for you. I don't have a better answer for now, but I have to find out answers to those questions.
Thank you, Kim. Pam?
We have an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. It's her job to make sure that we're meeting all the state standards. It's her job to look and evaluate the new series of books that come out, the new ways of doing things. This district has gone through a lot of changes over the time that I've been on the board. From the way things are taught to the type of books that things are used. And I really feel that we are constantly moving in a positive direction and getting better and better with what we teach our kids and how we teach our kids. The board also gets reports periodically from all the curriculum, all the studies, social studies, science, English, reading. We've done a number of times where they're keeping us up to date on what they're doing in the classroom, how they're doing it, how it's working out. And if something's not working out, they let us know and they ask us for money to get something better. So I think we can't know everything, but we're a part of it and we're open and receptive to reports and suggestions from the assistant superintendent, the superintendent, and the teachers as well.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Other questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
So to follow up on something that Mr. Frederick said, so in the recent past, we've had capital projects for roofs and upgrades we got the turf field, we got upgrades of the regular sports fields. So do you have a wish list of capital projects other than maybe escalators or some other ideas?
All right, Karnjit, let's start with you.
Currently, as I see it, when I go out there, I believe everything looks, I won't say up to par, but everything looks nice out there. All the fields look great. The middle school is obviously beautiful itself. There's some spots to clean up on. There's sidewalks and Glen Warden had been a little tarnished. The fields, I believe I could, get a redoing over there. I haven't, Glendale, I've seen, blacktop, torn up a little bit, but other than that, I don't have a big wish list for it currently, so that's something I have to really get back to you on that.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
Well, I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the particulars with respect to what needs to be updated and what doesn't. That was something I have to learn. If we're talking wish list, I would love to see the creative arts parts of the building to be updated, or orchestra and band rooms, or chorus rooms, or fine arts rooms. If we're talking a wish list, I would definitely like to see those areas updated.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Pam?
Every year, the district is gone through, but I think it's our architects, and they look at all the issues, and first of all and foremost and most important of things that need to be done is anything that deals with the health and safety of our children. And that's the top priority of what we fix and what we do in capital projects. And then as we can, which is never as much as we'd like to do, we fix the buildings, we do upgrade rooms, we do that, get more equipment for different courses or that kind of thing as we can. But we are constantly on top of that, of what needs to be done, just like you are, I'm sure, in your home. You know what's coming up, you know what's starting to go bad or whatever, where you're going to have to spend the money. And fortunately, we have been able to do a lot of that in the last few projects that the public has approved for us to get our stuff in good shape and maintain what we have.
Good. Thanks, Pam. Rick?
I love that question. Three things. Well, first of all, like Pam said, Drew and his team are constantly looking at this. They have the list, and that's the list that has the years attached, to the necessity of having something done. They're familiar with what's aided that the state will help with. So, they're really. But if I had a personal wish list and just hearing what's out in the district that folks would like to see, our bus facility itself. We've, contracted out to be able to utilize another district's facility. They upgraded and they made a great capital improvement there, and we're sharing in that new facility. It would be great long-term to have our own, so we're not contracting there. We had our own, if that's something, we could afford. Our bus facility could be, one of my top three that I would choose. We also then have happier bus drivers, or maybe even more bus drivers, which is where we have a drought right now. So I think that's, would be a dream capital improvement. I agree with Kimberly a lot. Our fine arts, our turf field was redone, and all our athletic fields outside, and that's very visible and sexy, and it's great to drive by, and we're very proud of that in our district when other districts and teams come and play here. I think that's great, but inside the building, the other districts don't always see. So I think fine arts really could use a great investment in just instruments and the tools that they need to do what they do, because man, do they put on some great performances. So those are two. And the third thing, it maybe actually isn't as sexy. We were doing the boilers, which are inside this year, and you can't quite see them, but the safety system, so the doorways, any way that our kids, you kind of hear these issues that happen around the school. So, any kind of infrastructure that would protect our kids, from somebody from the outside coming in is something I think would be a great capital improvement.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Okay. Any other questions? Go for it.
I think in general in education, we're losing learners, administrators, teachers to different districts, different careers. What would you do, and this is coming from home, and I know you're mom friends, what would you do, or what do you think could be done to keep teachers and staff in our district talking, about the mental health of our students, which is number one, but I mean, they're walking into an environment that's created by the teachers, and they're gonna vibe off of that, so what would you do to keep the teachers here and happy and address their mental health?
Okay. Let's start with Kim.
Starting with me?
Yep.
Okay, great. First off, I would like to meet with them and see what they feel like they need, because they're the ones that are going to know the best as to what they need to be able to do the best that they think they can do and that they know they can do. So that would be the first thing I'd want to do. I'd want to meet with them and find out what they need, because as a parent, I see what's happening with my one child. They have hundreds, thousands of kids. So they're going to be the ones to tell me best. And I will take them at their word. I will listen carefully, and I will advocate for what they need. But until I have that conversation with them, and I'd love to have that, I think that'd be the most important piece. I do agree with Pam. Smaller classroom sizes definitely would help. Hopefully in that regard, I would assume it would. But again, I'd like to have that conversation with the teachers and find out what they think they need, because they're the ones that are going to know the best answer to that.
Thanks, Kim. Pam.
I've found over the years that our teachers have a pretty good relationship with the Board of Education and the staff and principals and those type of things. And I would like to think that we try and do every day what we can do to help make teaching easier and give them what they need support-wise. I don't think that we have as many teachers leaving as other districts do. I'm going to go back to Schenectady because that's where I'm familiar with, that's where I taught. The turnover of teachers in Schenectady and staff members and stuff was much, much higher than here. And I think we try and keep our teachers happy just by the little things that we do. And, you know, when we talk contract and stuff like that, we can't give them everything they want. Believe me, I would love to. But I think we've got a relationship where we can work things out. And I think that's important.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Rick?
I grew up here, went to school all 12 years here, and I actually saw teachers that taught me when I came back and started living here. So I know teachers do have tenure, they do stay. And I also agree, I have friends that, you know, went to school here and are now teachers here, and they aren't 100% happy. There are places where we can improve, and I hear that. And we, like Pam is saying, work very hard to make that happen. The truth is there's a level of separation between what the board can do and what actually happens. You know, there's some contract negotiations which are, you know, that takes its own, you know, legs and has its own effort and does eventually come to us in a refined way to approve it or not, yes or no. And we have worked very hard to keep our teachers very happy. They're the workhorses, and like you said, they're the faces that the kids see every single day, so it's super important to do that. So I'm all for supporting our teachers. They are, you know, a huge part of what makes any school district the district. There needs to be a way for a board to know what the teachers, you know, if there's the little or the big things that they want. There's no real communication there. So, you know, luckily I have friends, so I kind of know what they're not happy about. But there's a solution to every problem. So airing those issues is an important thing to do.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Karnjit?
Give them more money. No. I wish. But like Rick and everybody said here, you know, that's something that has to be looked into. You know, we have to talk to the teachers, reach out to them, possibly do a survey and see what the board could do better to help, you know, the teachers, you know, stay if the reason why they're leaving or why they're looking to leave. Try to keep them here. I mean, the longer the teachers stay here, the better it is for the community, the better it is for the students. They get to see that familiar face all the time. I know my kids love their teachers, you know, as much as possible. So it's sad to see teachers leave the district. You know, again, all I can say is that, again, reaching out to the teachers, trying to figure out where the board could do better, where could we, you know, meet in the middle, try to figure out what's best for everybody here.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, so if not, I want to thank our candidates for coming out tonight. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and remind you to vote on Tuesday, May 16th, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the high school, the old gym at the high school, the B-Wing gym. Thank you very much.
you.